Hello, welcome to the Bella Infidelity Stories channel, a place where we present genuine narratives filled with surprising turns. If you found the video enjoyable, consider subscribing and giving it a thumbs up. It truly contributes to the growth of our channel. Now let's immerse ourselves in the narrative. I've always considered myself a straightforward person. My work is clear and direct. I specialize in various repair and maintenance tasks. Individuals reach out to me for assistance with fixing fences, replacing leaky faucets, or repairing decks. It's genuine work and I enjoy it. No, the supervisor is hovering over me, free from office politics. Just me, my craft, and a task completed with excellence. Occasionally, my friend Kyle reaches out to me with a call. Well, more like he sends me messages from China, where he has been residing for the past few years. We've shared a lifelong friendship, yet since his move, our connection has largely been maintained through texts and the rare video call. Nevertheless, he reaches out and occasionally he requests a favor, not for him, but for his mother, Barbara. Barbara resides merely a short distance away from my location. She is in her 50s, divorced, and from what I understand, she has been independent for a considerable time. Kyle is a wonderful son. He feels a deep concern for her, despite the vast distance that separates them. Whenever he asks me to swing by her place to take care of something, I'm totally fine with it. It's always something small, replacing a light bulb that's out of reach, clearing a clogged sink, assisting her in setting up a new television, things of that nature. This time, it was her vehicle. Kyle sent me a message in the morning. Hey, the car isn't starting. She reached out to a mechanic, but they won't be able to come until next week. Would you mind taking a look at it? With a free afternoon at my disposal, I informed him that I would make my way over. As I arrived at Barbara's house, I noticed her waiting outside, positioned by her car in the driveway. She greeted me with that familiar, inviting smile she always wore. I brought my hero cape. I chuckled as I climbed out of my truck. She chuckled softly. I remain optimistic. This device has been causing me issues all morning. Barbara exuded a sense of self-assurance that was unmistakable. She possessed an undeniable grace, effortlessly showcasing her style in simple jeans and a cozy sweater. Her dark hair featured strands of silver, yet they complemented her beautifully. She appeared to be someone who had everything under control. She exuded confidence, was astute, and consistently appeared to manage everything effortlessly. I lifted the hood and began to inspect everything carefully. The battery terminals showed some corrosion, but it wasn't anything serious. After a brief period of tinkering, I tidied them up and secured a few connections. Give it a go, I urged, taking a step back. Barbara settled into the driver's seat, twisted the key, and the engine sprang to life with a powerful roar. She gazed at me through the windshield, her eyes wide with wonder, and then broke into a grin. Your help is truly invaluable. Just a fellow. With a few instruments, I shrugged. She exited the vehicle, dusting off her hands. Impressive speed. I anticipated some unfortunate news regarding the necessity of a new engine. No, just a few loose connections. I cleaned my hands on a rack. Nothing a mechanic wouldn't have inflated the price for. She gently shook her head. I truly can't imagine my life without you. It was a phrase she had uttered previously, yet this time it carried a deeper significance. We stepped inside, allowing her to brew me a cup of coffee. That was yet another aspect of Barbara. Whenever I assisted her with anything, she was adamant about compensating me with coffee. It had sort of evolved into our signature. We gathered around her kitchen table, the warm glow of the late afternoon sun pouring in through the windows. The dialogue flowed effortlessly, as it always does. She shared with me the tale of the neighbor's new dog, a relentless barker that seemed to echo through the air. I shared with her the story of a client who attempted to compensate me with homemade jam rather than money. We shared a moment of laughter. At that point in the dialogue, I uttered it. It was unexpected. It was nothing major. I was simply playing around as I usually do. If we were both the same age, I would propose to you. I intended it as a playful compliment, a touch of whimsy, nothing else. Barbara smiled, yet a deeper emotion flickered in her gaze. A unique perspective. She placed her coffee cup on the table, tilting her head just a bit. Could you? Her delivery took me by surprise. No laughter echoed. There was no casual flick of her wrist. She gazed at me as if she were genuinely contemplating it. I let out a nervous laugh. Absolutely. You're intelligent, amusing, and wonderful to be around. I drifted into silence, becoming aware that I was elaborating far beyond what was necessary. Her gaze remained fixed on me, a gradual smile beginning to grace her lips. I savored a sip of coffee, seeking to redirect the dialogue to a different topic. In any case, your car is in great shape. It shouldn't cause you any further issues. Barbara reclined in her chair, a smile lingering on her face. I sincerely hope that isn't the case. However, if it happens, I'm aware of whom to reach out to. Chuckled, savoring the last sip of my coffee, always delighted to assist. At that moment, it didn't seem significant to me, yet, in retrospect, perhaps I ought to have. Several days went by, and I found myself not dwelling on the events at Barbara's. For me, it was merely another trip, another act of kindness. Sure, I cracked a joke, but that's just the kind of humor I often share. I didn't really anticipate anything from it. Then she reached out to me. The sun was beginning to dip in the sky, and I had just completed the task of repairing a wooden deck for a client on the other side of town. As I was gathering my tools, the sound of my phone ringing interrupted the moment. Barbara's name appeared on the screen. "Hello, Barbara," I replied, steadying my drill in one hand. "Hello there." "Hello, Brad. I apologize for the interruption, but it seems that my kitchen sink may be leaking. I attempted to secure the pipes beneath the cabinet, yet the dripping persists. Now, let me share something with you. Barbara had never reached out to me directly before. Whenever she required assistance, it was invariably through Kyle. He would message me, inquire if I was available, and I would head over. However, this was unfamiliar. Nevertheless, a dripping sink wasn't a major concern. "All good, I can. Drop by." "Is that so? Oh, that would be wonderful. I truly appreciate it." She seemed truly grateful, and I couldn't just walk away while she was stuck with a broken sink. I gathered my equipment and made my way over. An unconventional greeting. Upon my arrival, she welcomed me at the door with a radiant smile. "You're a true hero, Brad, contributing to the integrity of the plumbing sector." I chuckled as I entered. The aroma of vanilla mingled with a hint of floral notes in the air, something understated yet apparent. Barbara's attire had a distinct flair that set it apart from her typical style. Nothing out of the ordinary, but rather than her typical jeans and sweaters, she wore a tailored blouse and a skirt. Her hair cascaded around her face, and I wouldn't be truthful if I claimed she didn't look stunning. I dismissed the idea. "Concentrate, Brad. Submerge initially." She guided me into the kitchen and I knelt down, inspecting the pipes. It was a small leak. "It appears to be merely a loose connection on the P-trap. A swift solution. Seems straightforward," I declared, extending my hand towards the wrench. Barbara rested against the counter, observing me with an inquisitive smile. "You excel at this. Have you ever considered billing me for all these visits to my home?" A soft laugh escaped me. "No way, you're part of the family." "Kind of." She inclined her head. "Kind of. Well, Kyle feels like family, so that sort of makes you..." I caught myself. "She feels like a mother to me. That seems unusual." Barbara wore a sly smile. Proceed. Complete the thought. I concentrated on securing the pipe, deliberately steering clear of her eyes. Forget it. She chuckled gently. I genuinely value all that you do for me. Certainly, I replied, examining the pipe. Say goodbye to drips. That ought to suffice. Barbara brought her hands together in a sharp clap. Incredible. Allow me the pleasure of preparing dinner for you as a token of my gratitude. Barbara, you really don't need to. I insist, she interrupted, already heading toward the fridge. I had plans to cook regardless. It would be best if you stayed. There was a moment of uncertainty. On one side, I felt an intense hunger. On the other hand, there was an unmistakable quality to her behavior that seemed altered. It's not bad, merely distinct. Understood. I finally agreed, but only if you assure me you won't take it too far. She beamed with delight. Agreed. Perhaps a bit too at ease. The dinner turned out to be quite enjoyable. Barbara excelled in the kitchen. Succulent roasted chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, and an elegant salad creation. We dined at the table, just the two of us, and the conversation flowed effortlessly as it always did. Yet, in that moment between replenishing my wine and tidying up the dishes, her fingers brushed against my arm with a casual grace. It was a subtle touch, barely there, yet it caught my attention, and I was aware that she was aware of my awareness. So, Brad, she remarked, propping her chin on her hand, I've been reflecting on what you mentioned the other day. I opened my eyes briefly. What I expressed. Her lips curved into a smile. If we were the same age, I wonder what it would be like to marry me. I almost sputtered my drink everywhere. That. Indeed, I was merely having a bit of fun. I know, she remarked, swirling her wine in her glass. Yet it was a lovely sentiment. I was completely at a loss for how to reply to that. This was a realm yet to be explored. Barbara had a certain allure, no doubt, yet she was undeniably Kyle's mother. There were boundaries that remained unbroken, and this was certainly one of them. Nevertheless, she refused to yield. She inclined her body a bit forward. Just because our ages differ doesn't mean we can't appreciate each other's presence. I took a deep breath. Barbara, indeed. She smiled, reclining with ease. Take it easy, Brad. I'm merely suggesting that you shouldn't dismiss things too hastily. I set my glass down and rose to my feet. I suppose it's time for me to take my leave. Barbara rose as well, accompanying me to the door. As I glanced back to bid farewell, she paused for the briefest moment. Just the right amount of time for me to ponder whether she was anticipating something. However, I had no intention of discovering that. I expressed my gratitude for the dinner with a swift remark. Her lips curled into a smile. Whenever you're ready, Brad. I ventured outside, inhaled deeply, and made my way to my truck. What on earth just occurred? That night lingered in my mind, refusing to fade away. Barbara's words echoed in my thoughts. Of course, she was merely being whimsical, or at least that's the narrative I attempted to convince myself of. Yet, there was an intriguing quality in her gaze, a delicate suggestion of something beyond mere friendly exchange that stirred a sense of discomfort within me. In the days that followed, I immersed myself in work, putting up shelves for a couple nearby, repairing a fence in a backyard, the routine tasks that filled my time. Yet the phone calls persisted. Brad, I recently acquired some new furniture. Would you be able to assist me in assembling it? Brad, my garbage disposal has ceased to function. Would you mind coming by to have a look? Brad, the light on my porch has stopped working. Can you spare a moment to address this? Every single time I agreed. I was never the type to refuse lending a hand, particularly when it came to Barbara, a long-time family friend. However, with every new request, I began to sense that something was amiss. Barbara relied on me as her trusted handyman. Even though I was willing to lend a hand, I couldn't help but sense that these conversations went beyond merely addressing household repairs. One evening, after she had repaired her porch light, She graciously invited me inside for a cup of coffee. As the hours slipped away, it was typical for her to make the request. We settled into the living room, and as she passed me my cup, a sense of ease enveloped her like never before. "So, Brad," she started, her tone gentler than normal, "I found myself reflecting once more on your thoughts regarding the entire age matter." I felt a heavy sigh within, bracing myself for the uncertain path this conversation could lead us down. "Barbara, I mentioned it was just a jest." "I understand, but it's hard to shake off," she remarked, taking a seat opposite me. "It's rare for someone to make me feel like I'm more than just a mother, you know." I squirmed in my seat, feeling a wave of discomfort wash over me. I truly didn't intend it that way, honestly. It was merely a comment I made in passing. She leaned in slightly, her gaze fixed on mine. "However, I believe you truly intended it. Perhaps it's simply that solitude has been my companion for an extended period. Yet, I find myself pondering, what if it was not merely a jest?" Her words struck me with the force of a gut-wrenching blow. This response took me by surprise. Of course, I was aware that Barbara had been on her own for some time, but I never imagined she would interpret my remark in such a serious manner. Before I had a chance to reply, she rose from her seat, made her way to a nearby bookshelf, and retrieved an aged photo album. She settled back beside me and opened it up, revealing images from her earlier years. "I once shared your perspective, Brad, vibrant and carefree. Yet as it often does, life unfolds and circumstances shift. As time passes, individuals mature and become entangled in their obligations." She halted, her gaze fixed on me. "I hope this doesn't come across as needy, but I've been feeling quite isolated. I find myself pondering whether perhaps you have a point. If we were of the same age, my heart would be racing. I found myself at a loss for words and actions. The atmosphere was heavy with unease. For the first time, I sensed the gravity of the situation bearing down on me. I aimed to avoid causing her any pain. She possessed a kind heart, warm, humorous, and approachable. Yet, she held the role of my best friend's mother as well, and that added layers of complexity. "Text, I believe you're over-analyzing this," I remarked, striving to maintain a calm tone. "We're simply friends, Barbara. That concludes everything." She gently closed the photo album and placed it aside, a subtle melancholy settling on her features. "I understand, Brad. I truly do." The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, suspended in time between us. It was clear to me that her feelings weren't rooted in anger, but rather in disappointment. Yet as I departed that evening, the discomfort in my gut intensified. I was completely at a loss regarding how to manage this situation. How could I possibly view her in the same light after all that had just transpired? I didn't intend to be harsh, yet I understood the necessity of establishing limits. Barbara was an admirable individual, yet there were boundaries that must not be transgressed. I considered reaching out to Kyle to share what had transpired, yet I found myself unable to take that step. How could I possibly start to articulate this? The following days slipped by in a haze. I occupied my time, steering clear of Barbara's calls and messages. I realized that I couldn't avoid her indefinitely, yet the thought of confronting her again twisted my insides. And yet, deep down, I sensed that I could no longer evade the circumstances ahead of me. Rest eluded me. Whenever I shut my eyes, Barbara was the only thought that filled my mind, her visage. The expression in her eyes as she recounted my words was captivating. I never envisioned that events would unfold like this. The words were merely a light-hearted jest, something I uttered without much thought. Yet now, it seemed as though they had unlocked a portal I was unable to shut. This was an entirely new experience for me. Certainly, I had experienced my fair share of uncomfortable encounters with women, Yet this situation felt distinct. Barbara was far from ordinary. She was the mother of my closest friend. Her age was a factor, certainly, but it wasn't the crux of the matter. The issue lay in the balance of power. I couldn't simply act as if nothing had occurred. Emotions were running high at this point. The most challenging aspect was my complete uncertainty about how to approach the conversation with her. I aimed to avoid causing her pain, yet I was equally reluctant to offer her any unrealistic expectations. I had no romantic feelings for her. Not like that. But how can I convey that without causing her to feel unwanted or even more hurt? Embarrassed. It was a Thursday afternoon when the phone call interrupted my work on a project I was deeply engaged in. A vibration stirred in my pocket, and there it was, Barbara's name illuminating the screen. I paused. A part of me wished to dismiss it, to let it slip into voicemail. Yet another part recognized that such an action wouldn't be the right choice. I replied, making an effort to keep my tone relaxed. "Hello, Barbara. How are you doing?" A moment of quiet lingered on the other end. Then, her voice more gentle than before. "Brad, I've been reflecting deeply on our discussion from the other evening." I shut my eyes, feeling a twist in my stomach. At last, it had arrived. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation long before the dialogue began. "Indeed, I've been contemplating it as well," I remarked, attempting to maintain a composed demeanor. "Hey, Barbara, I never intended for things to become awkward." A soft sigh escaped her lips before she spoke once more, her voice barely above a whisper. "I understand you didn't intend it that way, but my feelings are my own." I pressed my fingers against the bridge of my nose. "Barbara, I aimed to ensure clarity in our communication. I truly didn't, but I believe it's time for me to be straightforward with you." She paused for a moment, and when she finally spoke, her voice carried a gentle warmth that tugged at my heartstrings. "I get where you're coming from, Brad, but it's challenging. The feelings I've harbored for you since that night are impossible to overlook. I've been grappling with it, yet my mind keeps circling back to the same thoughts. Regarding you, I took a deep breath, overwhelmed by a surge of remorse. I never intended to give her false hope, yet I also wished to spare her feelings. "I understand, Barbara," I replied, my tone softer than normal. "I truly do, but it's important for you to grasp one thing. My feelings have changed. I appreciate your interest, but I'm not seeking a relationship at this time, especially not with someone who is a friend's mother." A lengthy silence lingered on the other end. The soft rhythm of her breath reached my ears, causing a tightness in my chest. At last, she uttered another word, her voice shattering the stillness. "I never imagined you would feel that way," she said softly. "However, I felt it was important to be truthful with you, Brad." A wave of sorrow washed over me. I felt no anger, not in the slightest. I was at a loss for how to resolve this issue. "Thank you for your honesty, Barbara," I said, searching for the perfect expression. "I believe it would be preferable for us to return to the way things used to be. We can definitely remain friends, but I'm unable to offer anything beyond that." After a prolonged silence, she let out a deep sigh, as though a heavy burden had been released from her shoulders. "Indeed, I understand. I believe that was something I needed to hear, even if it stings a bit. I simply wish to understand our position." A peculiar blend of relief and guilt washed over me. I had expressed everything that required expression. Conversely, I had caused her pain, and that filled me with regret. "I apologize, Barbara," I murmured softly. "My intention is never to cause you pain. I appreciate you deeply as both an individual and a companion, but I must be honest that I cannot provide anything more. I trust that you comprehend my perspective." Another pause lingered, yet this time it felt lighter. "I certainly do, Brad. Your honesty means a lot to me, and I truly value it." We lingered in the quiet for a moment, both uncertain about how to bring the conversation to a close. At last, Barbara spoke, her tone more buoyant. "All right. I'll allow you to return to your tasks, and rest assured, I'm doing well. I truly appreciate your understanding." "Absolutely," I replied, a wave of relief washing over me. "Wishing you well, Barbara." "Absolutely, same to you, Brad." After we hung up, I reclined against the workbench, a sense of exhaustion washing over me. The dialogue unfolded in a manner that exceeded my expectations, yet an unsettling sense lingered within me, suggesting that nothing would return to its former state. I was uncertain whether my actions were justified. I had been truthful with her, yet I was aware that I had caused her pain. At this moment, uncertainty loomed over what would unfold next. Could our bond withstand this moment? Or had I just stepped over a boundary that would render everything uncomfortable moving forward? I found myself in a position where all I could do was wait and observe. A week had passed since the discussion with Barbara, and the atmosphere was undeniably strained. She reached out to me several times, yet I continually discovered excuses to dodge her calls. The initial message she sent inviting me to come by and assist her with some tasks at home nearly swayed me, yet I recognized it was not the wisest choice. I needed to establish limits. My intentions were not rooted in malice. Rather, they stemmed from a place of respect for her and for my own integrity. This was never part of my plan. It all began with a careless joke, one I tossed out without a second thought, and now I was facing the consequences. I never intended to cause her pain, yet I was acutely aware that my words had sown a thought in her mind, a thought that I couldn't simply dismiss. That evening, I found myself in my cozy living room, the television flickering in front of me, yet my mind wandered elsewhere, detached from the screen's glow. My thoughts wandered to distant places. The message from Barbara lingered on my phone, untouched, while the missed calls began to accumulate. The burden of the situation bore down on me, leaving me at a loss for solutions. I didn't intend to be harsh, but I couldn't continue to give her false hope, especially since I had no desire to pursue anything deeper. I glanced at my phone once more, filled with uncertainty. A new message arrived from her. I pondered the decision to dive into it, yet ultimately, I realized it was a necessity. I could no longer evade this. I unsealed the correspondence. "Hey Brad, I've been considering the idea of having a conversation. Our conversations are truly missed. I genuinely hope you are doing well. Feel free to reach out if you're interested in meeting up for a coffee soon." A breath of resignation slipped from my mouth. The weight of guilt pressed down on me once more. For days, I had been steering clear of her, yet here she was, making another attempt to connect. A part of me felt sympathy for her, yet another part was simply drained. I had expressed all that was necessary, and there were no further answers I could provide. It was difficult to find the right words to express my need for space, to convey that I could no longer maintain the facade, that everything remained the same between us. I lingered for a moment, gazing at the screen. I might have chosen to overlook the message. I could have ignored it, but that didn't sit well with me. Barbara was no stranger to me. She was the mother of my closest friend, a person I had been acquainted with for many years. I inhaled deeply and started to type. "Barbara, I've been reflecting deeply on all that has transpired, and I feel it's important to express my thoughts. Clearly, I value our connection, but I can't keep engaging in the same manner we have been. This situation isn't beneficial for either of us. I don't wish to cause you pain, but I must prioritize other aspects of my life at this moment. I trust that you grasp the situation." I went over the message again and felt a tightness in my stomach. I didn't intend to come across as severe, yet I was aware it was the reality. The moment had come to turn the page on this chapter. I dispatched the message and reclined in my chair, anticipating her reply. It was a brief moment. My phone vibrated. Once more. I see where you're coming from, Brad. I truly do. I appreciate your honesty. I apologize if I caused any discomfort. I will make an effort to honor your requests. A peculiar blend of relief and sadness washed over me. A sense of relief washed over me, knowing I had acted with honesty, yet a profound sadness lingered, stemming from the realization that I had caused her pain, a truth that stung deeper than I was willing to acknowledge. I set my phone aside and reclined, attempting to make sense of all that had transpired. I never envisioned that things would unfold like this. I was merely attempting to assist a friend, and before I knew it, the situation escalated beyond my grasp. I had to acknowledge, however, that I wasn't completely blameless in this situation. The thoughtless things I said had triggered a chain of events. I had always taken pride in being a decent person, someone who offered assistance to others in their times of need. This situation revealed just how quickly things could spiral out of control. I had caused pain to Barbara, and there was no turning back from that. She was the mother of my friend, and I had ventured into territory that was irretrievable. In the days that ensued, she fell silent once more. It felt like she truly understood my feelings and allowed me the freedom I required. I was certain I had made the correct choice, yet it did little to ease my discomfort. A persistent feeling of guilt remained with me. The stillness that hung in the air felt like an empty chasm, leaving me uncertain if I could ever experience the same warmth in her presence again. I attempted to progress in my life. My commitments occupied my time, leading me to dedicate more energy to my friendships and personal aspirations. Yet, even at this moment, I couldn't dispel the sense that a significant change had occurred. I wasn't merely steering clear of Barbara. I found myself evading the repercussions of my own choices. I never intended for events to unfold in this manner, yet I found myself unable to alter the course of what had transpired. I discovered a profound truth about the influence of language and how it can mold connections, whether positively or negatively. Ultimately, I came to understand that even the tiniest error can spiral into something far more significant than you ever envisioned. Regarding Barbara and myself, I can't predict what lies ahead. Perhaps in due course we might restore the bond we once shared. Perhaps not. All I understood was that I had put forth my utmost effort to be sincere and compassionate, even if the result wasn't what I had wished for. Ultimately, I discovered that certain matters are beyond repair. One must acknowledge their errors and strive to progress, with the hope that circumstances will eventually align into a more bearable existence.